I'm Quinn Hudson here with the Art and Soul. We're interviewing here. We got a special guest, Ronnie Law from the Legends Tour. Ronnie, every time we come, we get the opportunity to talk to our special guest. Jazz is transcendent to all types of music. How did you get started?
Well, I mean, I came from a musical family, and I was really had the fortunate experience of being always in a musical environment. You know, beginning with my family, and then being in association with some of my mentors, like the Jazz Crusaders.
Yep.
You know, Wilton Felder, Wayne Henderson, Joe Sample, Stick Hooper. So, you know, having a beginning like that, I mean, it was only normal that I would gravitate toward the music and being inspired to do that.
And did church play a role?
My mother was the choir director in the local church.
Okay.
You know, and so I mean, it had an impact because I mean we had rehearsals in our home.
Gotcha.
You know,
so it was right there for you.
Yeah, it was right there. So and then my mother was really a music connoisseur. You know, I mean, what I mean by that is she was very. I mean, she had a high interest in making sure that we were, exposed to different genres of music, you know, and so it ranged from blues to jazz to even to classical,
right?
You know, so all of that had an impact on all of us growing up in a musical household.
And the musicians that, as you were growing up, who did you look to? What idols did you have in music that you had influence on, or influenced you?
As I mentioned earlier, some of my home guys, the Crusaders, you know. We need to,
no, it's
can
okay.
Edit that. Okay.
Yeah, we can get past.
Because I mean, it was loud anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, as I mentioned earlier, the guys that. Became to be known as the Crusaders, you know, and then there were local artists in Houston that inspired me. Arnett Cobb, a jazz legend, from Houston. David Fathead Newman from Dallas, you know. So I mean, I had a lot to draw from, you know, and to select from, because I was very selective in who I wanted to listen to, you know.
And so as you started to, as you climb into your musical career, as you started to gain traction with it, when did you feel like you had arrived?
Well, and that was never a real moment, time that you say, well, I've arrived, you know, but you recognize progression in your career, you know, and trying to establish yourself as a formidable artist. And so, when I moved from Texas to Los Angeles, I did a lot of freelancing, and I have, encountered some great musicians and interacted with them, and did a lot of session work, and then having, eventually became one of the original members of Earth, Wind and Fire. I mean, that was a great foundation,
sure.
There, and then I played in my brother's band, for a while, and eventually, with Hugh Masekela, the South African musician, and from that point, it was really from Hugh's playing with him that I really focused on being a solo artist.
A lot of times artists will say that their experience when they travel internationally is a different experience based on how the music is received. How did you see jazz internationally versus how you saw it here from home?
Well, jazz has always been internationally appreciated and accepted in other outside of of our country. And there's a prophetic saying that a prophet is appreciated except in his own home, and that's because we being so much talent here in America, a lot is taken for granted, but when we travel abroad, they appreciate the gift and the contribution that that jazz has contributed.
Nice.
Yeah.
When you're traveling or when you're listening to music, if you're not listening to yourself, your own work,
right.
But if you're listening to other, what's in your playlist?
Well, I mean, I'm old school, so I mean, I've always loved the Motown, artists like Stevie and Temptations, and then going from that, going over to straight ahead, John Coltrane, Cannonball Adderley, Miles Davis, and so it's a whole wide range of interests that I've always had musically.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so, as you mentioned, when you've worked with Earth, Wind, and Fire, in that experience, as they became iconic,
Right.
in itself. What was that like, being literally an instrument in that success?
Well, it was a great honor
Yeah.
because you're a part of an historical, legendary group, and you had a contribution to that. I mean, it's a great honor. I mean, it really is.
And now, as you're doing like the legends of jazz, as you guys travel around, where do you see, as your work continues outward, where do you want, where are the next steps for you?
Well, just continue doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And enjoying the ride, the journey.
Right. And as a musician, I know as long as the love is in your music, it still comes through. Because anyone can pick up an instrument and play it, but
Right.
when the artist loves that music, that's how it comes out, and that's what the audience can connect to.
Yeah, you have to have a passion for what you do, So, I mean, if you don't have that passion, then it becomes work. It is work anyway, but when you enjoy what you do and you have a passion for it, it's you don't consider it as work.
Absolutely.
It's a great honor and privilege.
And it's an honor and privilege to have time
Thank
to
you.
talk to you today, and we
Right.
look forward to you guys putting on an outstanding show with the legends.